Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salala Makudir, and the time is 7 minutes before the top of the hour. And in a bit, we'll be shifting our focus now to Syria. We'll be discussing the latest escalation in Syria as the country condemns deadly Israeli airstrikes that have targeted civilian sites near Damascus. These attacks have left several people dead and have drawn sharp criticism for Syrian authorities. The Israeli strikes, while aimed at military targets, according to the IDF, have raised serious concerns about the safety of civilians and the growing regional tensions. And joining us to unpack the situation in Bilal, Abdul Kareem is a Syria-based American journalist who has been closely monitoring the developments in the region. Bilal, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time. Bilal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. I said thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. I think our point of departure can be just you maybe just describing the scale of the recent Israeli airstrikes near Damascus and the immediate impact on civilians.
Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The other day there was an airstrike, or several airstrikes, around 10 kilometers south of Damascus in the Sayyid Zainab area. Now, uh, there were two Hezbollah commanders which were allegedly to have been killed. The strikes happened in a residential area, so there were other injuries as well to civilians. I don't want to sound as if I'm belittling it or I don't see that as a big deal because it is. It impacts people and families. However, that's not what the main story actually is. Because these airstrikes have been taking place and have been ongoing for several years now. It just doesn't get much international press. The real story that's happening here is the admission that the Israelis carried out the airstrikes. They never ever admit to carrying out these types of attacks in foreign lands. Now, why are they doing it now? Why has their policy changed? Well, just around 5 or 6 days ago, the Israeli government said that unless the Syrian government distance itself from Iran and from Hezbollah, that they're going to remove Assad from power, of course, militarily. Uh, so all of these changes in terms of the rhetoric and in terms of their admission of carrying out these strikes is what is the bigger story, which doesn't belittle the civilian casualties. So this is the biggest story that has to be watched.
No, definitely. And if there's one thing that's really interesting and always stands out for me, is the fact that the Israeli government has often justified, these kinds of strikes as targeting military assets linked to Hezbollah and Iranian forces. And in Gaza, they would say it's Hamas bases. Do you think these actions are really about that, or are they broader regional motives at play?
Well, it's not a secret. Hezbollah has a stronghold where they have a lot of their members and commanders in the Sayyid Zainab area, which is, as I said, 10 kilometers, about 6 miles south of Damascus. That's not a secret. So, do I believe that it has connections to their efforts to try to neutralize Hezbollah? Yeah, sure. I don't think there's any question in that regard. But the issue is that the Syrian Foreign Ministry complains to the UN by way of a letter, basically calling on the UN to rein in the Israelis and to stop their aggression. Um, I don't even think that the Syrian government thinks that that's going to do anything. The United Nations has been totally impotent in terms of reining in the Israelis when they're carrying out a full blown genocide right on television beamed into millions of homes around the world. Now, Bashar al-Assad and his government just carried out their own massacres that are still taking place up until this day. So it's kind of like I don't think anybody's going to take anything that the Syrian regime says seriously.
Mm, no, definitely. And just speaking broadly on the escalation of the Israeli occupying forces war essentially on the region and different parts of the region. Syria itself, how has it been affected in real terms by these new insurgents by the IDF? We've seen what's currently happening in Lebanon. We know there's a big Syrian population in that part of the world. What can you tell us about the situation on the ground regarding that?
Well, in that Sayyid Zainab area, there were a lot of Lebanese refugees that flooded from Lebanese territory, which is under bombardment, into that Sayyid Zainab area south of Damascus. So there are other areas which are hosting lots of Lebanese refugees. So those are some of the changes that are on the ground. Um, the Syrian government is not preparing for war. They don't have the assets to carry out a war against the Israelis. So they're not going to respond, and Allah knows best, because they basically have nothing to respond with. Um, they approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, there were Israeli incursions into Syrian territory, and but where were the military assets of Bashar al-Assad going? They were going to the north to fortify positions against rebel forces. So I don't think that Bashar al-Assad is worried about any type of invasion or Israeli invasion. However, he understands that if they did invade, he doesn't have the forces to stop them. So I think he's just continuing his war in the north because he knows that there's really nothing he could do in the south.
Mm, No, just in closing, Bilal, what do you think, the next few weeks will be holding for us? We're seeing the US elections currently ongoing. There seems to be a lot of focus on that and the impact the results of those elections will be having, on the Middle East and the current ongoing crisis in that part of the world. What can you tell us about, the expectations and what the world needs to look out for in the next coming weeks?
I don't want to sound apocalyptic because I'm just not
Mm,
that kind of a person. However, most of the projections are projecting that Donald Trump was the winner and he'll be the 47th president of the U.S. So he's the president elect. I'm waiting in the wings. Now, Joe Biden and his administration, of course, alongside him was Kamala Harris, who basically gave Netanyahu a blank check. In spite of what Netanyahu was saying, they gave them more than $20 billion in aid, diplomatic cover, and many other things, which including having a strike force and aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean Sea to make sure that Iran doesn't respond in any meaningful way. So, with all of that in mind, then you have a Donald Trump coming to office, just being elected under these circumstances, while using the rhetoric on the campaign trail that he, quote, wants the Israelis to finish the job. Now, finish the job doesn't mean stop. Finish the job means smash them until it stops. And so, therefore, he technically isn't even the president until, for the next 2.5 months. So Netanyahu will see this as an opportunity to do everything that he can short of launching a nuclear strike, because he knows that Not only does he have an ally in Joe Biden, but he has an even bigger ally in Donald Trump.
No, definitely. And I think it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks awaiting the world, and particularly the Middle East. We're going to leave it here for now. Bilal, thank you so much for giving us your time. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Well, there you go. Bilal Abdul Kareem is a Syria-based American journalist, and he was giving us insight on those recent airstrikes by the Israeli occupying forces, and which have been condemned because of how deadly they've been, and they've targeted civilian sites near Damascus. And as always, it's a script out of the Israeli murder playbook. We are targeting Hezbollah, we are targeting Hamas, we are targeting terrorists and insurgents, but then you turn around and kill innocent women and children. And I'm just asking myself, how long will the world continue to let this happen? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. News and Views continues.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.